The communication device in the Terran Council chamber began to glow with a strange blue light. Admiral Sarah Chen looked up from her reports and frowned. The device had never done that before. She pressed the response button and stepped back. As a massive hologram appeared in the center of the room, the alien that materialized was tall and thin, with purple skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were large and black, taking up most of its face. When it spoke, its voice was deep and echoed strangely in the room. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Ambassador Zektar of the Galactic Federation. We bring urgent news from across the galaxy." Admiral Chen straightened her uniform and stepped forward. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen, speaking for Earth. We are listening." Alien's expression grew serious. Great war has begun between 2 powerful forces. The ancient hegemony seeks to control all worlds in their path. The coalition fights to stop them and free the oppressed planets. Every species that can travel between stars must choose a side. There is no neutral ground in this conflict. Chen felt her stomach tighten. She had read about galactic wars in the history files. They were always bloody and lasted for decades. Millions died on both sides while planets burned. "What exactly are you asking of Earth?" she said carefully. "You must declare loyalty to either the hegemony or the coalition. Your ships and soldiers. We'll join the fight. Your factories will make weapons. Your people will serve the cause you choose. This is not a request, Admiral Chen. This is how things work in the galaxy." The other council members behind Admiral Chen began to whisper among themselves. She raised her hand for silence and looked directly at the alien ambassador. "Ambassador Zektar, I appreciate you coming to us with this information. But Earth's answer is no. We will not join either side in this war." The hologram flickered as if the alien could not believe what he had heard. "I do not think you understand. This is not optional. Every species must participate. The galaxy demands it." "The galaxy can demand whatever it wants," Admiral Chen said. Firmly, Earth has fought enough wars. We have seen what happens when species destroy each other over power and territory. We will not be part of it again. The alien's 4 arms moved in what seemed like frustration. "You are a young species. You do not understand the ways of the galaxy. The hegemony will not spare you because you remain neutral. The coalition will not protect you if you do not help them. You must choose." Admiral Chen walked closer to the hologram. "We choose peace. We choose to stay out of your war. If either side attacks Earth, we will defend ourselves. We will not attack others for the sake of galactic politics. This is foolishness," the alien said, its voice growing louder. "How can such a primitive species refuse to serve their betters? Do you not understand honor? Do you not understand duty?" "We understand both very well," Admiral Chen replied coldly. "Our honor tells us not to kill for causes we do not believe. And our duty is to protect our own people, not to die in other people's wars." The alien ambassador stared at her for a long moment. Then his image began to fade. "You will regret this decision, humans. The galaxy will not forget your refusal. When the war comes to your doorstep, do not expect help from anyone." The hologram disappeared, leaving the council chamber in silence. Admiral Chen looked around at the other council members. Some looked worried. Others looked relieved. "Ma'am," said Counselor Martinez, "do you think we made the right choice?" "Think we made the only choice we could live with," Admiral Chen answered. "We've spent the last 50 years building peace on Earth. We're not going to throw it away for aliens who see us as nothing more than soldiers to be used up." Over the next few days, more messages came from the Galactic Federation. Some were angry demands. Others were promises of rewards if Earth changed its mind. A few were threats about what would happen if they continued to refuse. Admiral Chen deleted them all without reading them to the council, but then the reports started coming. In from the outer colonies. At first they were small things. Ships that were supposed to arrive at Mars colony never showed up. A research station near Jupiter stopped responding to calls. A mining operation in the asteroid belt went silent for 3 days before coming back online with half their crew missing. Admiral Chen tried to tell herself these were just normal space accidents. Equipment failed sometimes. People got sick. Communications broke down. But deep in her mind, she began to worry. The worry became fear when Captain Rodriguez of the Outer Patrol Fleet sent an encrypted message. His ship had found wreckage from a human transport vessel. The metal had been cut with some kind of energy weapon. There were no survivors, but there were also no bodies. Someone had taken the crew. Admiral Chen called an emergency meeting of the Terran Council. She stood before the assembled leaders and spoke quietly. It appears our refusal to join the Galactic War may not have been accepted as well as we hoped. Ships are missing. People are disappearing. Someone is taking our citizens, and I don't think it's pirates. Counselor Williams leaned forward. You saying the aliens are kidnapping humans? I'm saying someone is taking our people without permission. And since we just refused to help to galactic powers, they seem like the most likely suspects. The room fell silent. Finally, Counselor, Zhang spoke up. What do we do? Admiral Chen looked out the window at the blue earth below. We prepare. If someone wants to test humanity's resolve, they're about to learn that peaceful doesn't mean helpless. She turned back to the council. Activate the defense protocols. Recall all ships to defensive positions and send a message to every human, colony and outpost. Tell them to be ready for anything. The galaxy may have decided that our neutrality means we're weak. Captain Rodriguez's ship moved slowly through the debris field. His crew worked carefully to collect every piece of metal and every scrap of evidence they could find. The wreckage belonged to the passenger ship New Hope, which had been carrying 300 human families to a new colony world. Captain, said Lieutenant Park from the scanner station. I'm picking up something big about 2 kilometers ahead. Looks like a ship, but it's not moving. Take us in slowly, Rodriguez ordered. Weapons ready, but don't fire unless I give the order. As they got closer, the alien ship became visible on the main screen. It was long and dark, with strange symbols carved into its hull. Parts of it looked damaged, as if it had been in a fight recently. Sir, I'm detecting life signs aboard that ship, Park reported, but they're very weak. Boarding party, Rodriguez called out. Full combat gear, we're going aboard. 20 minutes later, Rodriguez and his team cut through the alien ship's hull with plasma torches. The air inside was thin and smelled like chemicals. Emergency lights flickered on and off, casting strange shadows on the walls. They found the first bodies in what looked like a medical bay. 3 aliens lay dead on the floor, their purple blood pooled around them. But it was what lay on the metal tables that made Rodriguez's stomach turn. Human bodies, dozens of them. Some were cut open. Others had strange devices attached to their heads. All of them were dead. My God, whispered Sergeant Kim. What did they do to them? Rodriguez forced himself to look closer. The humans on the tables wore the clothes of farmers and teachers and children. These were the passengers from the New Hope. The aliens had been experimenting on them. Document everything, Rodriguez said through gritted teeth.
Take pictures.
Collect samples. Earth needs to see this. They moved deeper into the ship and found more horrors. Rooms filled with human organs stored in jars. Computer files showing how human DNA was being studied and copied. Video recordings of humans being forced to fight each other while aliens watched and took notes. But the worst discovery was in the ship's cargo hold. Hundreds of metal cages, each barely big enough for a person to stand up. Most were empty now, but some still contained human prisoners. They were barely alive, their eyes empty and staring. Get the medical team over here now, Rodriguez shouted. Into his radio. We have survivors, but they're in bad shape. As his medics worked to save the prisoners, Rodriguez found the ship's computer system. With help from his tech specialist, he managed to access the alien files. What he found made his blood run cold. The ship belonged to something called the Hegemony. According to their records, they had been capturing humans for over a year. The files showed that humans were considered excellent soldiers because they could adapt quickly and fight harder than most other species. The Hegemony had been using captured humans as shock troops in their war, sending them to die in the most dangerous battles. But there was more. Rodriguez found communications between this ship and others. The Hegemony was not the only group taking humans. Their enemies, the Coalition, were also kidnapping Earth's people. The Coalition's files showed they were using human brains to make their computers smarter. They believed human neural tissue was the key to creating artificial intelligence that could win the war. Rodriguez felt sick as he read report after report. Both sides in the Galactic War saw humans as nothing more than resources to be harvested. They talked about Earth's people the way humans might talk about mining or cutting down trees. Lieutenant Park called from the bridge. Need to see this. Rodriguez hurried to the main computer. Park had found a map showing hegemony and coalition operations throughout human space. Red dots marked where ships had been taken. Blue dots showed where colonies had been raided. There were hundreds of them. Sir, according to these files, they've taken over 50,000 humans in the past year, Park said quietly. Men, women, children, they don't care who they take. Rodriguez stared at the map. Every red and blue dot represented human lives lost, while Earth's government thought they were dealing with normal space accidents. The aliens had been systematically harvesting humanity while pretending to respect their neutrality. Get me a secure channel to Earth, Rodriguez ordered. Admiral Chen needs to see this immediately. The transmission took 3 hours to reach Earth. Admiral Chen was in her office when the emergency communication came through. She watched in growing horror as Rodriguez's report played on her screen. Pictures of dead humans. Video files of alien experiments. Computer records showing the scope of the kidnapping operation. When the transmission ended, Admiral Chen sat in silence for a long time. Then she picked up her secure phone and called the Terran Council into emergency session. Hours later, the most powerful leaders on Earth sat around a table and watched Rodriguez's evidence. Some looked sick, others looked angry. All of them looked shocked. "How many of our people are gone?" asked Counselor Martinez. "At least 50,000 confirmed," Admiral Chen replied. "Probably more. They've been taking us for over a year while we thought we were staying out of their war." "What do we do?" Counselor Williams asked. Admiral Chen stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of the city below. Millions of humans going about their lives, unaware that their species was being hunted by aliens who saw them as nothing more than useful animals. "We tried peace," she said quietly. "We tried neutrality. We told them we didn't want to be part of their war." She turned back to the council, and her eyes were hard as steel, but they made us part of it anyway. They chose to see our peaceful nature as weakness. They chose to take our people for their own purposes. They chose to treat us like cattle. Walked back to the table and placed her hands on it, leaning forward to look each council member in the eye. "The galaxy thinks humans are just another resource to be used up in their war. They think we're too primitive and too weak to stop them. They think they can take our children and our families, and we'll just accept it because we're afraid of their superior technology." Admiral Chen straightened up and her voice grew cold and hard. "They chose wrong. Send a message to every human ship, every colony, every outpost. Tell them what we've learned. Tell them that Earth is no longer neutral in this war. We tried to stay out of it, but they brought it to us anyway." She looked out the window again, at the peaceful Earth below, and sent another message to both the hegemony and the coalition. Tell them that they have awakened something they don't understand. Tell them that peaceful doesn't mean helpless. Tell them that they have chosen to make humanity their enemy, and they are going to learn exactly what that means. The room fell silent. Then, one by one, the council members began to nod. Earth's time of peace was over. The galaxy had forced them into a war they didn't want, but they were going to fight it on their own terms. 3 months after Admiral Chen's message went out to the galaxy, the first human battle fleet left Earth's orbit. It was not the largest fleet in galactic history, but it was different from anything the aliens had ever seen before. The ships looked strange compared to the smooth, elegant vessels that most species built. Human ships were blocky and practical, covered with armor plating and bristling with weapons. They had been built quickly, but they had been built well. More importantly, they had been built angry. General Marcus Torres stood on the bridge of the flagship Retribution and watched the stars streak past as they entered hyperspace. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. He had fought in Earth's last war 20 years ago and had hoped never to fight again. But the aliens had taken that choice away from him, General said. Captain Foster, from the navigation station, will reach the first target in 6 hours. Torres nodded. The first target was a hegemony supply depot in the Kepler system. According to the intelligence they had gathered from captured alien ships, it was where the hegemony kept weapons and fuel for their war effort. It was also where they processed human prisoners before sending them to the front lines. But Torres was not planning to attack just the hegemony. At the same time his fleet hit their target, Admiral Chen would be leading another fleet against a coalition research facility. The aliens had forced humanity into their war, so humanity was going to fight both sides equally. "Sir," said Lieutenant Commander Walsh from the communications station, receiving a transmission from the coalition. "They want to talk." "Put it through," Torres said. A hologram appeared, showing a blue-skinned alien with large eyes and tentacles instead of arms. It spoke in a voice that sounded like music. "Human General, I am Ambassador Veltar of the Coalition. We wish to discuss an alliance. The hegemony is your true enemy. Join us, and together we can defeat them." Torres looked at the alien for a moment. Then he smiled. But it was not a friendly smile. "Ambassador, 3 days ago, my people found one of your research stations. It was full of human brains floating in jars. You were using them to build computers, so no, we will not be joining you. We will be destroying you, just like we're going to destroy the hegemony." The alien's tentacles writhed in what might have been surprise. "But surely you understand that sacrifices must be made for the greater good. Your species' neural patterns are uniquely suited for our purposes. We honored your people by choosing them." "You honored them," Torres repeated slowly. "By cutting out their brains?" "Yes. Their minds live on in our systems, helping us fight for freedom across the galaxy." Torres felt his anger rise, but he kept his voice calm. "Ambassador, let me explain something to you. Humans don't consider it an honor to be murdered for your computers. We consider it an act of war, and we're very good at war." The alien looked confused. "But you are a primitive species. Your technology is inferior. How can you threaten us?" "About to find out," Torres said, and cut the transmission. 6 hours later, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. The hegemony supply depot was a massive space station orbiting a dead planet. It was protected by 12 warships and a network of defense satellites. "Sir," reported Captain Foster, "they're hailing us. They're demanding we identify ourselves and state our business." "Tell them we're here to collect a debt," Torres said. "All ships, attack formation. Target the defense platforms first, then the ships, then the station. I want prisoners if possible, but don't risk our people to take them." The battle lasted less than an hour. The alien ships were larger and had more powerful weapons. But they fought like they expected their enemies to follow certain rules. They moved in predictable patterns and wasted time on warning shots and formal challenges. The humans fought differently. They came in fast and hit hard. They used the asteroids in the system for cover and attacked from multiple directions. Once when an alien ship tried to surrender, the humans accepted it. When another ship tried to ram a human vessel, the humans destroyed it without hesitation. Torres watched from the bridge as his ships systematically dismantled the hegemony defenses. His people fought with cold efficiency, following their orders. Precisely. They were not cruel, but they were absolutely ruthless. "Sir," called Commander Walsh, "we're getting reports from Admiral Chen's fleet. They've successfully hit the Coalition research facility. Minimal casualties on our side, heavy losses for them." Torres nodded. "Good. Signal all ships to prepare boarding parties. I want every piece of data on that station. I want every human prisoner found and freed." The boarding operation took 3 more hours. Torres went aboard the station himself to see what they found. The hegemony had been using it not just as a supply depot, but as a training facility. They had been teaching captured humans to fight and then sending them out as expendable soldiers in the station's prison section. Torres found over 200 human captives. Some were soldiers who had been taken during raids on outer colonies. Others were civilians who had been kidnapped from transport ships. All of them looked thin and tired, but they were alive. General Torres, asked a young woman who stepped forward from the group. Is it really over? Are we going home? Torres looked at her and at all the other faces watching him hopefully. Ma'am, you're going home. But it's not over. It's not by a long shot. As the rescue ships took the freed prisoners back to Earth, Torres stood in the station's command center and studied the hegemony's tactical displays. The aliens had marked human space with symbols that meant resource extraction zone. Okay. Had planned to take millions more humans for their war effort. Sir, said Captain Foster, what are your orders for the station? Torres looked around at the alien technology that had been used to process human slaves. Then he looked at the tactical displays showing hegemony plans to raid more human colonies. Blow it up, he said simply. All of it. Leave nothing that can be used again. As his fleet prepared to leave the system, Torres received a communication. From Earth, Admiral Chen's face appeared on his screen, and she looked grimly satisfied. Marcus, how did it go? We freed over 200 of our people and destroyed their supply depot. No human casualties. What about you? We hit 3 coalition facilities and rescued nearly 400 humans. We also captured their research. Data on human neural patterns. They won't be making any more brain computers. Torres nodded. Any word from the galaxy? Ash, any response to our attacks? Chen's expression grew cold. Both sides are demanding we stop our aggressive actions and return to neutral status. They're threatening to destroy Earth if we don't comply. Torres laughed, but there was no humor in it. They're threatening us? After what they did to our people? That's what I told them, Chen replied. I also told them that we're just getting started. Earth is mobilizing every shipyard and every factory. We're building a fleet that will make today look like a minor skirmish. Good, Torres said, because the galaxy is about to learn something important about humanity. We tried to stay out of their war. We tried to be peaceful. But they chose to make us their enemy. Now, humans are very good at being enemies. Chen smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. The aliens think that superior technology makes them superior in every way. They think that because we're younger and smaller, we must be weaker. They're about to discover that they're wrong. As the transmission ended, Torres looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, both the hegemony and the coalition were planning their next moves against humanity. They probably thought that a few quick victories would teach the upstart humans to know their place. They had no idea what was coming for them. Earth had been asleep for 50 years, building peace and prosperity. But the galaxy had chosen to wake the sleeping giant. And giants, once awakened, were very hard to put back to sleep. 6 months into the war, the galaxy was learning that humans fought differently than any species they had ever encountered. General Torres stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's surface, studying the holographic display that showed the current state of the conflict. Red dots marked hegemony positions. Blue dots showed coalition forces. Green dots represented human fleets. The green dots were everywhere. Sir, said Colonel Martinez, pointing to a cluster of red dots near the galactic core. The hegemony is massing their main fleet here. Intelligence suggests they're planning a major offensive against coalition worlds. Torres nodded and traced his finger along a shipping route that connected the hegemony fleet to their supply bases. What's protecting their supply line? 3 patrol squadrons, sir? They've pulled most of their forces to the main fleet. Then, that's where we hit them, Torres said. Signal Admiral Wong's task force. I want those supply convoys destroyed. All of them. Captain Brooks, Torres's aide, looked concerned. Sir, that will leave the hegemony fleet without fuel and ammunition right before their big attack. Exactly, Torres replied. Let the coalition and hegemony fight each other. We'll make sure neither side can win. This was how humans had been fighting for 6 months. While the 2 alien factions focused on massive fleet battles and territorial conquests, human forces struck at supply lines, communication networks, and industrial facilities. They avoided large battles and instead slowly strangled both sides. Ability to wage war? Admiral Sarah Chen had called it cutting the snake's belly instead of fighting its head. The aliens still didn't understand it 3 days later. Admiral Wong's ships struck the hegemony supply convoy in the Vega system. The alien escort ships fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. The humans destroyed 23 cargo vessels carrying fuel, weapons, and food for the hegemony's main fleet. When the hegemony finally launched their offensive, their ships ran out of fuel halfway to their target. The mighty fleet that was supposed to crush the coalition instead found itself stranded in empty space, helpless and abandoned. But the humans were not finished. While the hegemony fleet sat powerless, human ships appeared and began broadcasting a simple message on all frequencies. Attention hegemony forces. You are out of fuel and far from home. Surrender now, and you will be treated fairly. Continue to resist, and you will be destroyed. Most of the alien commanders were too proud to surrender to what they still considered a primitive species. Those ships were disabled and their crews taken prisoner. But some hegemony captains were smart enough to recognize reality. They surrendered their vessels and were shocked when the humans kept their promise to treat prisoners with respect. Commander Zekanel of the hegemony cruiser's Sword of Conquest was one of those who surrendered. Human soldiers escorted him through the corridors of their ship. He found himself surprised by what he saw. The human vessel was clean and well organized. The crew worked with quiet efficiency, and they passed the medical bay. Zekanel saw human doctors treating wounded hegemony soldiers with the same care they gave their own people. I do not understand, Zekanel said to the human officer escorting him. Why do you heal our wounded? We are your enemies. Lieutenant Commander Kim looked at him with something that might have been pity. Because they're hurt, and we can help them. That's what people do. But we would not do the same for you, Kim replied. That's the difference between us. Later, Zekanel found himself in a comfortable cell with other hegemony prisoners. They were given food, medical care, and even entertainment. It was better treatment than the hegemony gave their own soldiers. This makes no sense, complained Captain Vortek from the cell next to his. They should be interrogating us, torturing us for information. Why are they being kind? Maybe, said Zekanel quietly. That's why they're winning. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, the Coalition was learning their own lessons about human warfare. Admiral Chen's forces had been systematically destroying Coalition research facilities. But they had also been doing something unexpected. They were freeing all the prisoners they found, not just the humans. Dr. Meltara was a Kelvani scientist who had been captured by the Coalition and forced to work on their brain-computer projects. She had watched in horror as they dissected human minds to understand how consciousness worked. When human soldiers burst into her laboratory, she expected to be shot as a collaborator instead. The human commander, a woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice, asked if she was hurt and offered her medical attention. But I am not human, Dr. Meltara said in confusion. Why do you help me? Because you needed help, the human commander replied. And because right is right, no matter what species you are. Dr. Meltara was taken to a human refugee ship, along with dozens of other freed alien prisoners. As she watched human medics treat Kelvani and Ixtharian, even hegemony captives, with equal care, she began to understand something important. The humans were not fighting for conquest or glory. They were fighting for something much more dangerous. They were fighting for their idea of what was right back on Earth. General Torres received reports from all across the galaxy. Human forces had captured or destroyed over 60% of both factions' supply infrastructure. Alien morale was collapsing as word spread about how well the humans treated prisoners. Some alien soldiers were surrendering rather than fight. Sir, said Colonel Martinez, we're getting requests for asylum from alien civilians on both sides. They want to come to human space for protection. Torres frowned. Protection from what? From their own governments, sir. Apparently both the hegemony and coalition have started executing anyone they suspect of being sympathetic to humans. They're calling it treason. Torres felt a familiar anger rise in his chest. The aliens were now killing their own people for the crime of not hating humans enough. It was just another example of why this war needed to end. Draft a message to both alien governments, he said. Tell them we'll accept any refugees who want. Sanctuary. Tell them we don't care what species they are or which side they were on. If they want peace, they can find it with us. Sir, Captain Brooks said carefully, that might make them see us as an even bigger threat. Good, Torres replied. Let them see what happens when you fight people who actually believe in something. As the months passed, the character of the war began to change. Human fleets were no longer just military forces. They had become symbols of hope for oppressed peoples throughout the galaxy. Alien refugees flocked to human ships. Seeking protection from the violence of their own governments, the hegemony and coalition found themselves fighting not just human forces, but also growing rebellions among their own populations. Planets that had been loyal for centuries began to declare independence and request human protection. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched as another coalition world broadcast its surrender. The planet's government had been overthrown by its own people, who then immediately asked for human assistance in building a new, peaceful society. Ma'am, said her communications officer, the Hegemony High Command is requesting a meeting. They want to discuss terms. Chen smiled. After months of treating the humans like an annoying pest, the aliens were finally ready to talk seriously. Tell them. We'll meet with them, she said. But make it clear that we're not interested in joining their war anymore. We're interested in ending it. Galaxy was about to learn that when humans fought a war, they didn't fight just to win. They fought to make sure the war could never happen again. And that was the most dangerous kind of enemy any tyrant could face. An enemy who fought not for power, but for peace. The meeting took place on a neutral space station in the Centauri system. Admiral Sarah Chen walked into the conference room wearing her dress uniform, her face calm but her eyes hard as steel. Across from her sat the leaders of both alien factions, Supreme. Commander Thokmer of the Hegemony was a massive creature with 4 arms and skin like black stone. His red eyes glowed with barely controlled rage. Beside him sat High Counselor Velthara of the Coalition, a being of pure energy contained within. A crystal shell that hummed with power. Both aliens had fought each other for decades. Today, they sat on the same side of the table, united only by their fear of humanity. Admiral Chen, Supreme Commander Thokmar, spoke first, his voice like grinding rocks. Your species has interfered in a conflict that does not concern you. We demand that you withdraw your forces and return to your own space immediately. Admiral Chen sat down slowly and folded her hands on the table. Commander, 2 years ago we asked to be left out of your war. You refused. Instead, you and the Coalition decided to kidnap our people and use them for your own purposes. You made this conflict concern us. High Counselor Velthara's crystal form pulsed with angry light. Sacrifices were necessary for the greater good. Your people should have been honored to serve such a noble cause. Noble cause, Chen repeated quietly. You cut out their brains to make computers. You sent children to die in your battles? You call that noble? You are a young species, Thakmer said dismissively. You do not understand the complexities of galactic warfare. Sometimes difficult choices must be made. Admiral Chen leaned forward slightly. You're right, we're young. And maybe that's why we still remember that some choices are never acceptable, no matter what the consequences. She activated a holographic projector in the center of the table. Images appeared showing the current state of the galaxy.
Ow.
The Hegemony and Coalition fleets were stranded without fuel or supplies. Their industrial worlds had declared independence. Their own populations were in open rebellion. This is what the galaxy looks like today, Chen said calmly.
What?
Your war is over. Not because we conquered you, but because your own people have had enough. They've seen what peace looks like under human protection, and they want it for themselves. Thakmer slammed one of his massive fists on the table. This is temporary. Our forces will regroup. We'll crush these rebellions and continue our righteous war. With what? Chen asked. You have no fuel for your ships, no weapons for your soldiers, no food for your populations. Half your military commanders have surrendered to us, and the other half are fighting civil wars on their own worlds. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Gentlemen, your war is over, whether you admit it or not. The only question now is what comes next. Velthera's form flickered with confusion. What do you mean? Chun turned back. To face them, I mean that Earth is not interested in ruling the galaxy. We never were. Just wanted you to stop taking our people and stop forcing others to fight your war. You expect us to believe you will simply leave? Thakmar asked suspiciously. We're not leaving, Chen said firmly. We're staying to make sure this never happens again. But we're not going to rule over you. We're going to help you learn to rule yourselves. She sat back down and activated another hologram. This one showed a proposal for a new galactic government. This is what Earth proposes. A galactic council where every species gets a voice. No more wars of conquest. No more slavery or forced labor. No more taking people from their homes to fight other people's battles. Velthera studied the proposal carefully. If we refuse, Chen's expression didn't change, but her voice became colder. Then you'll continue to watch your empires crumble as more and more worlds choose freedom over tyranny. Your choice. Thakmar leaned back in his chair. You think you can force peace on the galaxy? There will always be conflicts. There will always be those who choose war. You're probably right, Chen agreed. That's why this council will have teeth. Any species that chooses conquest over cooperation will find themselves facing the same situation you're in now. It's cut off, isolated, and surrounded by people who believe in something better. She stood up again. But here's the thing you need to understand. Humans don't want to be the galaxy's police force. We don't want to spend the next 1,000 years fighting wars. We want to go home and build beautiful things and raise our children in peace. Chen walked toward the door, then stopped, and looked back at the two alien leaders. But if someone threatens that peace, if someone chooses to hurt innocent people for power or glory, then they'll discover that peaceful doesn't mean helpless. They'll learn that humans will fight as long and as hard as necessary to protect what we believe in. After Chen left, the two alien leaders sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Velthara spoke. What choice do we have? Our fleets are scattered. Our populations are in revolt. If we refuse their proposal, we'll have nothing left. To rule, Thakmar's red eyes dimmed with defeat. How did they do it? How did such a young species defeat us so completely? I don't think they were trying to defeat us, Velthara said quietly. I think they were trying to save us from ourselves. 3 months later, the new Galactic Council held its first meeting. Representatives from over 200 species gathered in a space station built by human engineers, but owned by the galaxy itself. Admiral Chen attended as Earth's representative, but she was not the council's leader. That position rotated among different species every year. The humans had kept their promise. They had not tried to rule the galaxy, but everyone understood that they were watching. In her office aboard the space station, Ashan looked out at the peaceful scene of alien ships from dozens of species docked together without weapons or suspicion. Former enemies worked together on trade agreements and scientific exchanges. Ma'am, said her aide, Captain Foster, there's been another request for human peacekeepers. A dispute between the Kelvani and the Exthari over mining rights. Send a team, Chen said. Make sure both sides get a fair hearing. Foster nodded, and left Chen turned back to the window and smiled. It had taken a war to teach the galaxy about peace, but the lesson seemed to be taking hold on Earth. General Torres stood in a cemetery where they had buried the humans who died during the alien kidnappings. A new monument had been erected with the names of all 50,000 victims. At the base of the monument, someone had carved a simple message. They chose to make us their enemy. We chose to make them family. Torres read the words and nodded. That was humanity in a nutshell. When faced with hatred, they responded with justice. When offered war, they built peace. When the galaxy tried to use them, they chose to save it instead. The sleeping giant had awakened, fought its war, and then chosen to go back to sleep. But everyone in the galaxy knew it was still there, watching and waiting. That knowledge was enough to keep the peace. In the end, the aliens had been right about one thing. Humans were different from every other species in the galaxy. They just hadn't understood what that difference really meant until it was too late to stop it. Humanity had refused to join the war until the aliens chose wrong. But when the war was over, humanity chose to forgive. And that choice had changed everything.